areas, with more being produced as we speak. If you're interested after today's presentation, please contact Automation Services directly or contact your account manager directly for more information on the currently available and upcoming test modules. Let's carry on forward here. I do appreciate you giving us a few minutes of time to show you what these new audit solution tests can do. And like we did last time, I'm going to show you a handful, just a couple, very high level tests that are included in the package. I'm going to run a manual in IDEA and then show you just how simple it is to run them from a script. The whole idea behind these scripts are they're consistent. You get the same output the same way every time, and you don't have to depend on somebody understanding all of the nuts and bolts about how to create that script. So it's a fantastic way for a senior person to have the oversight. Hand these scripts off to a junior person, maybe use somebody who's just cutting their teeth, so to speak. Let them run the tests, get the results, and start learning as they go. I know you guys have very competent staff, and people are coming out of school now with incredible computer skills, but you still need to get your feet wet, kind of start off slow, and feel good about the results that you're getting. In this particular instance, down here in the lower left-hand corner, I have an external project. I'm using an external project, and if you're using version 9 of IDEA, you know there's managed and external. They work both the same. We're not going to worry about the differences because fundamentally and physically, they're going to perform exactly the same. So an external project is just located on my hard drive called number 1 Audit Solutions AP. I've imported one data set into my project. And over here on the library, I want to take time to show you because this is going to come up in a future video that I'm going to use to explain a couple of things about this. When you purchase the Audit Solutions packages, any one of them, GL, AP, what have you, it's going to come in a zip file. And the zip file will have to be extracted. Obviously, you need to extract and pull all of the data out of that zip file. I actually extracted the files to my macros folder. It doesn't really have to be there, but it makes it real convenient. Ultimately, I'd probably move it up to my local library so many projects can use them. But where the video is going to come in is over here on the macros menu. You can modify your ribbon and put the tests on the ribbon where you can do one button and activate the test very quickly, very efficiently, and it's always there. It's just waiting for you. I have an Audit Solutions AP, and then I've got a handful of tests that I've migrated to that menu, and I'll do a very quick video here in the future to show how to make that happen. Let's jump back over here. Now the 3 tests that I'm going to do manually, pretty simple tests, but there's a little bit of under the hood work that needs to be done with it. Maybe creating an index, adding a column to the data set and using that column to purify the data a little bit. And then I'm going to run one test at the very end. It's called Potential Vendor Bill Splitting, and it takes advantage of a custom function. Let me jump back over here into Library. When you purchase the package, you're going to get a week.idea function. It's a custom function developed by the professional services team here at Automation to accompany and help do some of the work for the particular script. It's a little bit more complex. Using that function makes it seamless, makes it very fast. So suffice it to say, I'm going to run that script. I'm not going to show you how to do it manually. It'd take us a little bit too much time. All right, I imported an AP data set using the usual manner. Desktop, chose Excel, whatever the format happens to be, and I just did a very quick import of the data into IDEA. Double click on the data. We can see the tons of columns in here in a standard AP file. This should look very familiar. Gone through here and I've taken the opportunity to converse with my client and get the data exactly that I need. And then I went in and I changed some names just to make my life easier. Not necessary. You don't have to do that. But you all know that you can click right here and retype the name of a column just so it suits you better. The first test that I'm going to do is a simple segregation of duty. It tests for rows of data that are created by and approved by or posted by the same user. I'm going to use that thought process and do a direct extraction out of IDEA based on 2 columns. So we're going to go over here to the Analysis tab. I'm going to click Direct Extraction and give my file a name. I'm going to call this SOD violations. Very simple. You can name it what makes sense to you. When you click on the little calculator button, it brings up the equation editor, full access to 115 very powerful, what we call app functions. They're macros that allow you to manipulate the data really easily. As everybody knows, the file that you have open in your window, in your data view, when you click the button, all of the columns become available. They can become items that you can use in various formulas. So I'm going to scroll down here because this is a pretty simple one. We're going to use, if I can find it, actually, easier way to do it is just start typing. Created by, and I'm going to use the exactly equal. Double equal means everything has to match. Spaces, dots, dash, special characters, everything. There's no wildcard effect on this. It's an exact match. And I want this to be the same as approved by. Simple equation. Always check it to make sure you've got a valid equation. You can evaluate, and like I said last time, when you're doing a direct extraction, a evaluation result of 0 is a no, a 1 is a yes. So all we got to do now is say validate and exit the equation. Say OK. And IDEA does a very quick extraction, pulls all the data out of the original data set where the created by person is the same as the approved by person. It's a red flag indicator for potential fictitious vendors or payments. Very simple test. If you wanted to have a junior person run this test all the time, you can get the Audit Solutions AP module, put that test up on the menu, and then run it very simply. Go to the macros menu. I'm going to choose segregation of duty violations. It's going to ask me to choose the file that I want to run the test on. Choose to run it on the AP data file. And then it just walks you through the process. It's more seamless. You don't have to get in under the hood. It asks you very, very succinctly, who created this? Created by. Second question, who approved it or posted it? Approved by. Click OK. And you'll run through and you'll get the same test results, not doing it by having to get into the equation editor. Like I said, if you want to pass this off to a junior auditor, junior data analyst, this is a great way to achieve consistent results and do all of these tests on every engagement. All right, let's jump to the next test. This is a test for advanced payments to vendors. Basically, you got preferential treatment. Somebody who's getting paid a little bit faster than they should. Potentially a red flag indicator for preferential or favoritism of certain vendors. Let's go ahead and see how we can do that. I'm going to close these out real quickly. And then I'm going to have my AP data file open again. Then I'm going to do another direct extraction. Back to the Analysis tab. Choose Direct. Let's give it a name again. Advance Payments to Vendors. Another good name. I like long names over here, so when I get my results, I don't have to wonder what it is that I'm looking at. Let's click the calculator button again and do another very simple equation. This one, we want the payment date to be before vendor due date. There we go. Another very simple equation. Test it. Always good. Another very good indicator, if all of the red text is finished in the equation panel, you've got a valid equation. I always remind people though, if you start getting into a little bit more crunchy equations, a little bit more complex, maybe some ifs or comparative ifs, a valid equation does not necessarily mean the correct answer. So my rule of thumb is I know the answer to the first 4 or 5 rows of data. When I'm doing an extract, I know the answer. So when I evaluate it, I can walk through that evaluation and say my equation produces the results that I'm expecting. When you're done and you're happy with it, click the validate and exit. Let's do it one more time. And I've got advance payments to vendors. These guys are getting paid a little bit quick. Again, there is a script inside of the AP Audit Solutions package that will allow you to walk through this, get a consistent output with a consistent name, and allow you to do it time and time again. Jump over to the Macros tab, and we're going to choose Advanced Payments to Vendors. We're going to select our data set and answer the simple question. They're not always this simple. Some of them take a lot of columns to be able to aggregate the data properly. And creating that index in the proper order with the columns in the right direction is vitally important to getting the correct output. Inside the script, it's done for you by default. Select the payment date field. Select the vendor invoice booking date, called the vendor due date. Click OK. And again, we produce a record set very quickly, very cleanly, an indication of preferential treatment. This direct extraction produces the file for you and allows you to do it consistent. That's what we're driving for right now, is fast and easy without having to make a lot of thought process on this. A junior person could easily handle this testing. I'm going to close these out, and we're going to jump to the next test. This one gets a little bit more under the hood. We're going to use a couple different techniques inside of IDEA to accomplish this test. I'm going to do a duplicate vendor bill payment with like a near match. What this is very closely akin to is batch processing of invoices or payments or what have you. A lot of things have to stay the same, and one thing has to change. IDEA has a built-in capability in the duplicate category to be able to make this really slick. The first thing that we got to do is append a column to this data set because it will be part of the index that we use to extract the data or summarize the data up on. Easiest way to do it is to double click anywhere on your data. You can always go up to the menu item and choose append. I like to just double click. What it does is shows me the structure of my data, but it also allows me to just very quickly append a new field to my file. I'm going to call it vendor bill number cleaned. Nice short name there. And I'm going to go ahead and leave that as a virtual character, just because what I'm going to do is strip out all of the letters and numbers into the column itself. I'm going to remove everything except what I want right here. So we're going to put a length of 25 just to give it some breathing room. And when I click the parameter, I'm going to take advantage of a few of the built-in app functions. If you open it up, you can start paging through those and get yourself familiar with it. I'm going to strip out all the spaces, punctuation, controls, dots, dashes. And if I use it just like this, I'll get a valid answer. At strip, but I'm going to nest another equation inside of it. So what that means is I'm going to use as a parameter to this strip function an uppercase. I want to get all of the letters that are remaining in my field in uppercase. Makes it easier to analyze. So we're going to do at upper. And then you open up your parentheses again and vendor underscore invoice. And I have to close out my brackets. If I evaluate that now, actually let's test it to make sure it's valid and evaluate it. You can see the letters right there. It's removing anything, and if there happens to be character data in it, it's going to make it an uppercase. So let's go ahead and say OK one more time. And if I scroll to the end of my data set and see I've got a new column. I got some blank vendor numbers in there. That might be an issue on another test. But all of the letters in the vendor number are now uppercase, and all of the spaces and dots and placeholders are removed. Okay, so now that we've kind of purified the data, we're going to do a duplicate detection. The duplicate detection on this particular file is basically the index. How do we want to format the data, put it into correct order to get a good solid result? Jump over to the Analysis tab, Duplicate Key Detection. Now, the key are the elements that need to be held the same. So let's click on the key button, and we just need to go through. I want the vendor code in ascending order. And next, I'm going to do the vendor bill number clean, the one that we just created, ascending order. And then I'm going to do the purchase order number, ascending. And lastly, I'm going to do goods. There it is, good received note number. That's like the bill number or the batch number. I say OK, give it a good name, duplicate by batch. OK. And I have a record set of values that are held the same that could potentially be paid on two different vendor numbers or bill numbers. This is a very good indicator of a potential fictitious vendor payment. Okay, somebody's getting paid the same invoice, the same amount, same date, same data on two different batches. Very good duplicate analysis. So you saw the process, and I had to go in and let's see, we had to add a column down here to the original data set. But what I want to do now is use the script. There's a lot more columns that we have to ask for in this because it has to do all of that work that I did, but it does it under the hood. Makes it very simple. So let's choose macros, and I'm going to choose duplicate vendor bill payments near match. So let's select the columns that we want to summarize the data set on. Now this summarization in the script, is going to include creating that extra column in the original data set. That's necessary in order to be able to get the data in the right order. So let's pick our values here. Vendor code, vendor invoice number, there we go. That one's right there. And then, of course, the purchase order number. This is the same elements we chose before. When I click OK, I have the exact same record set, but I didn't have to do any of the padding of the data in the original data set. Actually, if I go over here and look, I probably have a new column over here that was created by the script that matches my column exactly. So what it does is it massages the data underneath the hood and then does the duplicate detection based on a key or an index, provides you with a result. So that's how you can take some of the tests, and this is only a few of the 16 tests available inside of this package, and you can do them manually, but again, there's some opening up of the equation editor. There's some knowing which way to format the data and what to append to the data and whatnot. These are pretty standard tests that should be run on virtually every AP engagement. And Don can speak to you more about this. What I want to do now is I want to run one of the tests that are a little bit more complex. This one is a test for potential vendor bill splitting. And it takes advantage of a custom function that looks at the week that the payment was made and seeing when those payments fall in that week and how close they are together. It's a red flag indicator for circumvention of vendor payment sanction. Maybe limits, or they're too close within a time frame or within the application system. So let's go ahead and see how we can do that. Again, I'm not going to run this one manually. I'm just going to show you how the script will actually do it. It's called potential vendor bill splitting. I've imported my data. I click on the button and it again asks me to choose my data set. Click open. And look at all of those columns that are required by the script in order to calculate a split or potentially split payment. Start walking through the columns and pick out the ones that are required. All right, we've got all of the elements defined for the script to go underneath the hood and do its thing. Remember in the library I showed you that custom function? This script is actually going to call that custom function to do stuff outside the script and provide a result for us. I'm going to click OK. And it very quickly jumps down and shows us where payment limits, the payments are very close to the payment limits by vendor. Gives us a consistent output that looks the same every time. They name it the same every time. If I go down to the library and look, Some of the tests even output Excel spreadsheets with the results. That allows you to take that out of your current library and email it to a client or to a function. Standard Excel format. So that's how we're going to walk through some of the very simple tests and get very powerful results using some of these canned Audit Solutions AP tests.